Welcome back to Choreograph Critics. It's been a bit. We're here to discuss a new direction in the podcast and how we're feeling about wrestling currently. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm John. Joining me as always is Joel.
Hey, yeah, it's been a grip, it's been a bit. But we're back and we're gonna talk about the state of wrestling, the state of the pod as you have as our title. I like that. It's kind of the state of the union, where we fall with the current product, especially WWE, right?
Yeah, mainly WWE, since that's what the show was about. That's what our fandom was. However, you want to classify it after our conversation today.
That's right. All the diehards need to know, where is CCW going? And we did have the privilege of covering WWE. We really loved what they had to offer. I'd say up until what? The last WrestleMania, for me, WrestleMania and Netflix launch, I feel like the product shifted away from some of its long form narrative. It shifted away from intelligent storytelling. And that's one of my big grievances. How about you?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been complaining since like November, basically of last year. I think that's when what happened then. That was the War Games that like didn't really pan out. I mean, it was
Oh,
fine, but I just kind of felt like creative was starting to tail off a bit, and it didn't really make any sense to me as to why. Um, and like we had talked about it maybe just being a lull, a creative lull.
right.
And yeah, it got to a point for me like where it almost a year into a lull. Like that's not a lull. um,
No, that's a dip. It's unfortunate too because it's so layered, right? The reasons. Some of this started with something I identified as the new mark. When Logan Paul came in, we knew we were headed to a territory where WWE wants the WWE universe to be a part of this ongoing social media engagement campaign where viewership is no longer contained to the weekly shows or PLEs. It's all about 24/7 engagement and how we can squeeze the attention economy and make sure we can charge high premiums for our content, whether it be at live shows. We've seen drastic price increases since the TKO acquisition, um, or merger, or whatever you want to call it. We've seen them shuffle around their broadcasting deals in a way that I feel is creating a less accessible environment for their content.
yeah, definitely. And they try to frame it as, oh, you can go to your already subscribed, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, a lot of people either share these subscriptions or they just, they don't subscribe to all of them because it adds up. So the latest thing there is the what are now called PLEs, paid live events, used to be pay-per-views, are now on ESPN. And I don't know the exact companies that are cooperating exactly, but for those of you who have a cable package with ESPN, there's a chance that yeah, your cable provider is going to let you sign in with your credentials for them, and that it'll just work fine. But for many others, their cable company is like, nah, we're not including that with our package here. So there's people left paying for essentially, it feels like two ESPN subscriptions because you're watching it on your cable and paying for it, and then you're paying for a completely separate subscription. And
That's right.
Yeah, so it's like it would be fully easier, whatever, if everybody had the same, you know, I guess, playground to do this, but they don't.
That's right. You're getting double the fees, and their audience base is becoming saturated, fragmented. Because I texted you a while back, I said, in this case, I kind of miss Nielsen ratings, like a very well-defined parameter of engagement, and you knew like how the weekly shows were doing. That's what the Monday Night Wars were all about, right? And now we look at this new landscape where WWE wants to reach crossover celebrities. They want all the social media platforms engaged. They want their kayfabe constantly being streamed. And then, well, what's left for the weekly shows and the PLEs? I don't know, because the creative decisions as of late have been myopic, meaning nearsighted. Their outcomes illogical. It's like they want to insult the wrestling enthusiasts in attention, or excuse me, intelligence, but they also want our attention. And it's like you can't have both. You can't insult my intelligence with this poor storytelling, with these weird drops and heel turns and face turns that don't make sense long term. They're not integrated into the long form storytelling, and everything feels more like a UFC centered. Let's have a big night at our PLE. It's going to be a fight night, and you're going to tune in just because these two coming together is something to watch. It's a spectacle. Yeah, that's part of wrestling, but you also have to tell a story up until that point. And I feel like before we get into their storytelling flaws, I do want to capitalize on the fact that, yes, you're getting nickel and dimed to split your audience base across Netflix, across cable, across apps, streaming apps, and you have all this on top of social media, and you're paying like more than we used to pay for just cable and having all access, right? I mean, it's so mind-boggling to me that they're squeezing everybody, and also insulting our intelligence with really bad storytelling.
Yeah, and it's a weird dynamic because, like, while you're correct with everything you just said, there was also during that time you had to pay $50 each pay per view. So
That's right.
like, yes, it's fragmented and it's probably, I mean, now with everything, it's probably equivalent or worse than just having a normal cable package and then paying for a pay per view every month. But I guess in those days they weren't necessarily every month. So I guess, yeah, it wasn't fifty
You have a
dollars.
point there too. What about though the era Eddie computing? What about Peacock and cable? We had
Oh yeah,
smooth access to PLEs. That was probably the best time, right?
yeah,
When the WWE Universe had their own network, and then we went to Peacock. I was baffled. I was paying like $6, $7 for all access to their PLEs, and then like I don't know, $40 to stream the weekly shows. Now I just feel like it's very difficult for me to go, I gotta have ESPN, I gotta have Netflix. Oh, SmackDown is no longer on network television. I have to have cable. So now I'm streaming cable, Netflix, and ESPN. Oh, and by the way, they randomly cut short their Peacock stuff. So if you still have that, maybe you could tune into Saturday night's main event. But even that, is that leaving? It's free for international audience on YouTube.
yeah. And we've not like in depth talked about VPN to Netflix, but that's the solution right now. Is just like you can get Raw and SmackDown and the PLEs on Netflix if you pretend you're somewhere else. And I don't know. To me, all of this, I think it just comes to like they're just trying to get everything up front. Like I don't know if this is a strategy to eventually sell because like they're gonna have a lot of financial like good looking numbers in the immediate. But with their current model, they're clearly not like focused on the future. And uh, I forget where I heard there was some podcast I was listening to where they were talking about like how Vince was more family oriented with the ticket prices and stuff. And there were articles about this too, where then the TKO people were like, yeah, Vince didn't maximize his opportunity for profit here. And while that's true, uh, it just seems like it's run by people who doesn't understand the wrestling business because there's so much like longevity to the storytelling and some of this the example that I heard, again, apologies to whoever did this podcast, I think it's Eric Bischoff. But they were just saying like, look, like there's a generational factor here. Like you got people that are excited to share this experience with their kid or grandkid or whatever, and then like somebody from an older generation will be like, hey, oh my gosh, we're gonna see Randy Orton. Like Randy's been around forever. This is awesome. And, you know, then maybe they're exposed to new people and whatever. Whereas, like, the younger generation, maybe, like, yeah, they know who Randy is, but they don't maybe know, like, he's Bob Orton's son and that he came up at the same time as Cena and Batista and all this stuff. And, like, if you're going there and there isn't that kind of, like, shared experience simply because like, oh, I can only afford half of a ticket, like I can't even afford to bring myself, let alone my family. um so it's just it might like come down to losing like generations of fans kind of thing, like if there's nothing that you can like recollect that like was impactful enough for you to recollect, I guess. Like everything's just going to be like this moment, that moment, and if everything's a moment, nothing's a moment, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You got to have that contrast, and they can't price out the young. They can't price out the new eyes. And that's the issue. I say in 2023 to 2024, WWE was running a toy ad, and it displayed a father playing with his son. Now, I would know this because I was not skipping commercials. Sometimes they would just play with my recording from my cable provider through DVR. And I just recently had a child. And so I was like, yeah, what is that perspective of having someone growing up with wrestling and also having like someone in the family who wants to share wrestling? Well, that toy ad WWE released, it's like they've completely forgotten about that in a couple of years because that toy ad encapsulated everything you're saying. Having that bond, that bridge to the other generation to hook in new viewers. And it can be done generationally. Talent is done and forged generationally. So the same thing is true for viewership.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Bischoff. I didn't look it up, but
And
um
it makes sense.
yeah, oh definitely. And I that just makes me think again, like maybe they're gearing up to like sell or something, so their numbers look fantastic. But who are they going to sell to that is also that short sighted? And is it just the same thing? You know, like if
And
they
at the
just sell it to Saudi, the House of Saud or whatever,
oh
like,
man. Yeah, well, and it's more about who has a controlling share in TKO stock. You know, the McMahons have a big share, and they're still behind the scenes with Stephanie and Triple H. And then you get this weird dichotomy, right? I asked you about this. I said, what's up with them actively trying to, almost like back in the territory days, Vince was trying to monopolize all these different promotions? And I feel like Triple H and Co. are actively seeking to monopolize the indie scene to block out AWA from recruiting. And I feel like they still have that game going on. but it feels like a dichotomy because their core product doesn't really respect wrestling, isn't paying attention to what wrestling enthusiasts want. It's almost as if they're creating a two-tier system of viewership. They have what I fun and it was really funny. So I was watching some ESPN clip that they uploaded, and people were like, "Wow, they uploaded it before WWE. Thanks, ESPN. This is a great deal." And then somebody else said, "Well, thank you, ESPN, for Disney wrestling." And it clicked. I was like, "Oh my gosh, WWE is becoming Disney wrestling. It's the big fight. It's the big draw, the legend, the nostalgia. It's all the elements of what the brand incorporates, but none of the soul and heart of wrestling. It's Disney wrestling." And so they got to monopolize the territories again, or in this case, the promotions, to compete with any competitor at the grassroots level. But that also funnels talent up to WWE so they can ride off high ticket prices and nostalgia, say screw storytelling, and still recruit from the indie scene while blocking out their competition. And to me, that's what I see developing, a two-tier system and two-tier product. So the company we used to know as WWE is now this corporate Disney wrestling and what WWE was, but not with the brand WWE anymore. It just is going to get its tentacles into TNA, perhaps. It's going to get its tentacles into promotions, just like Vince did during the territory days, to compete with folks like Tony Khan and AEW.
And I forget, did I send you something in text about Disney wrestling too? Because I had this conversation with somebody. It might have,
It's great, right?
yeah, because it's very. Oh no, it was one of my other friends that I play Magic with. Because Magic the Gathering is going through exactly the same, if not worse, than wrestling right
Crossover.
now. Yeah. So I had been joking in text like there's a card called there's like instant cards they're called in Magic that they were
Mm.
gonna just start like incorporating wrestling as one of the crossovers, and then like these instant cards are gonna be like I'll cast an RKO or just
Right.
something stupid. Um, but yeah, the comparison I made this to was Space Jam 2. I don't know if you saw it, but
Yeah. Only the first one, the cartoon one,
yeah, so Space Jam
with Michael
2,
Jordan.
yeah, number 2, it was LeBron James, and this was like after I don't know exactly how many companies like kind of combined, but like basically what HBO Max is now. There's a lot of stuff that like combined to do that. But anyways, what I'm getting at is Space Jam 2 utilized every IP under their umbrella. So like
Sure.
you're like seeing this basketball one on one or whatever, and then you look in the crowd and it's like, oh, there's some DC superhero character or villain or whatever. Like it just didn't make sense. Like Looney Tunes and a basketball player doesn't make sense either, but it's at least like more straightforward than like every single unique IP that they have. So yeah, I was
Right.
just like, we're just waiting for Randy Orton versus Mickey Mouse or whatever. Like it's just where we're
It's gonna
headed.
happen. It's where we're going. Yeah, and that's the new mark, though. The new mark wants 24/7 engagement streams, scrolling, but they also want to be able to tune into the myopic nature of the big fight. Sometimes a big fight can be a part of long form storytelling, as it was so gracefully done with Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. But also, a big fight can be John Cena versus Brock Lesnar for who the hell knows why. And I gotta say, there's one thing we overlook about the nature of conglomeration and corporate entities. They love to optimize metrics. And so part of me wonders if the decline in WWE storytelling is because they have like a team of fiscal auditors that go to WWE Creative and go, hey, can we optimize the way you formulate story and also increase numbers? And part of me really wonders, John, in this age, because there was such a sharp, weird, jagged turn from where we were with Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, the end of the bloodline, to John Cena taking the title off of Rhodes at WrestleMania. That was a big shift. And to me, I wonder really if they're like they have like a formula these days where they just like feed it into a computer AI algorithm. AJ Styles, and this is what you know about AJ Styles, and this is what we have done, and what do you think we should do? And that's why these weird myopic storylines are coming out of nowhere, and they don't really make sense, but they also kind of make sense. Do you think there's anybody trying to optimize and engineer wrestling storytelling to a point where there's not a lot of human input anymore?
That's a interesting. Yeah, that could definitely be because I. Yeah, I don't know what else feeding into these numbers appeals other than like that their number that they like, which is money, looks great. Um, I
Yeah, like
don't.
Lesnar must have been a cost benefit analysis. They're like, yeah, he's still kind of hot to touch, but according to the computer, he'll generate a lot of revenue.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, because who's just like Brock is clearly cleared from this legal thing that's still ongoing. Like, how can you even make that declaration? It's like, but it's yeah. I don't know. The nearsightedness. It's just it. This is kind of a deep cut, but there's like a 2-part episode of South Park from like 2009 or something where essentially the whole premise of it is they're like um comparing Eric Cartman to the show Family Guy. Like they assume that he loves
Okay.
Family Guy. Um and so anyways, like he's like pissed off about it and just wants to do everything he can to stop Family Guy from existing. So he goes and he sees how Family Guy is like made. And essentially what it was like there's like these idea balls in an aquarium, and I forget what the animals were, but the animals would like swim over to the ball ideas, grab one, and then bring it back over here. And then it would just be like 3 of them, and then they're like, "Hey, there's the joke." And
Yeah. There's
yeah,
the show. Seth MacFarlane must have hated that, but that's hilarious because yeah, Family Guy compared to South Park, right? There's a level of depth and intelligence, and that's where we're deviating now with current WWE product. It's lacking a level of depth and intelligence.
yeah, precisely.
And where do we go from there? Because, I also wanted to share with our viewers, we are optimistic too, and that's where the shift in the podcast, that's why we're doing it. It comes into play because we've had good times just going to TNA recently. That was a lot of fun because it still feels intimate and still more about fan satisfaction and not about maximizing revenue. I mean, you can tell viewers you were at NXT at the Armory in Minnesota, and then you went to TNA at the exact same venue, the Armory. And John, tell our audience how WWE used the space and how TNA used the space.
Good setup. Yeah, so when I went to NXT, I'll just use actual numbers, whatever. We're adults listening. I paid $150, and they had essentially like the way the Armory is set up. It's almost like a nightclub. There isn't like stadium style seating or anything. Um, so it's all floor seating, and the way that they had it set up for NXT was not as like the ring wasn't like as in the center of the space as TNA was. So the like I guess think of it like it for a ratio, like it was like way closer to the stage than it was the
Mm.
last row of fans. So I was in row 30, floor seating there, and another thing was they don't have the like jumbotron like large screens or anything. Like they only have like what they have set up for the stage. So the point being, row 30 floor seating all at the same level, you can't see anything back there. Whereas with TNA, like I was saying at the beginning, it was more in the center, and it didn't go back 30 rows any direction. So I think like the worst would have been like, I don't know, like 15 or something. But anyways, so I paid $150 for the worst seat in the house, let's say, for NXT. And then Joel and I here, I got on a loop in the upper right corner here, some pictures. We were second row. We were within camera sight. There wasn't. It wasn't like when it was on the main side frame that you could see us. Like we would have been a little bit behind a post, but there happened to be a moment between Matt, Jeff Hardy, and the Dudleys where like you found this picture online from, I think it was PW Insider or something, where it showed them, and like smack dab in the middle of them is you and I in between the ropes.
That's right.
So the point being, I had one experience where I just was like, "Oh, cool! I just lit this $100 bill and some change on fire." And then I had this TNA experience where I was like, "This is like one of the best shows I've been to." It was my second or third time being that close, just for any type of wrestling event. And you hadn't been that close, right?
No, that would be the closest I've been, yes, in my life. And it really did amaze me. We carved our way into wrestling history. That day we made history. And CCW is now a part of the lore of wrestling by proxy to the Hardy Boys and Dudley Boys coming together for a meeting to discuss or finalize their big last match. But yes, you are correct. For most of the show, you can find it on YouTube. We did have that post factor. But we also were in a space where people would come down the ramp and walk right by us. I believe Moose, one of the talent, you got to get up close and personal with him. Jeff Hardy was very kind. A lot of the wrestlers, it just gives you insight into their temperament and what they really do for a living when you get that close. It is kind of a hard physical career, and you could see the wear and tear. Like when Jeff and Matt Hardy walked by, I mean, I'm a grown man, but I've watched those guys perform since I was a young boy. And talk about generational, John. To have him that close, not to get all like woo-woo, just to feel like their aura and like their presence is different than the image you are given on a television screen. And so to be there in the flesh with the wrestlers, especially somebody who is a legend, now you know why they get so much money for their tickets, like you said, to see a Randy Orton. But to be that close and have it be affordable, that's a different ball game. That is for wrestling enthusiasts. That's not to squeeze the consumer of the product.
Yeah, and like we were second row, so right in front of us there was a family with a couple of young children. And could you imagine that like at WWE? Like
Yeah.
just a random family, like I mean they could have been loaded. I have no idea. But like I'm assuming they were typical, like the experience we were
Yeah.
trying to say is getting lost now with the ticket prices. Like yeah, it was
Yeah.
just cool
I
to
mean,
even like just have that intimate environment. And I've had that experience at NXT. It's just I not at that venue and where I got tickets for, but
and that was pre cardiac Paul Levesque.
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because there's a difference. Uh, but
he's had to change of heart.
Yeah, there you go. We're being facetious, but you're right. You're right. We're right. Whatever. Uh, to see a family in the front row, that's great. And yes, John, I can confirm the dad fed his daughter a corn dog, so firmly middle class.
Okay.
Um, I I think that's great though, right? Like you see a family, they're buying the food, they're there in the seat, they love what they're watching, and some may argue wrestling isn't something for children. But it's kind of this, what do we call WrestleMania? Showcase of the immortals. When you're growing up and you're a child, that's like watching legends, superheroes.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it would be. I don't know. I don't know if superheroes would be so popular if you had to pay $400 when they come once a year or whatever.
Right. Right. So that leads me into, we had been very excited in the past about SummerSlam coming to Minnesota. We got screwed out of WrestleMania. Now we come to find, John, WWE is willing to have the top bidder take priority. So now we're getting WrestleMania in Las Vegas again. We got a 2 night SummerSlam that was supposed to be the first ever at Minnesota. Now it's this last SummerSlam we had. That was the first 2 nighter. So they just chipped us out of that. It's like nothing special. Everything can be bought, you know? And now we have WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia, and we have the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. What is going on?
Yeah, it's just money, right? There's no other explanation.
Yeah, yeah. And then I see a lot of people, the journalists say this is time, a ripe time for Tony Khan to put on a show domestically, have his own WrestleMania, take advantage of this. Do you think they're going to capitalize on that? Having a lot of people upset with big shows like WrestleMania just being bought and sold to the highest bidder. Do you think Tony Khan can make something special, or do you think there's a different set of problems preventing AEW from being as special as it could be?
Yeah, it's pretty much set up on a silver platter for him. One thing with the WrestleMania not being domestic in general, like even if it was like UK, for example, like there's all these indie promotions and stuff that know where WrestleMania is going to be, and they put up their own, events and stuff in neighboring venues and just in the general vicinity of WrestleMania, and they do pretty well off of it. Like before, Ring of Honor was bought out by AEW, and they were more indie. They had like I don't remember what their biggest pay per view was, but it was always the same weekend as WrestleMania in the same town, and so I don't know if part of this is like to take away from that aspect as part of a strategy for WWE too, or what, but it gives Tony Khan the opportunity to hold this event domestically that will draw other events nearby and be like a good community thing. So it's there for him. It's just will he like make that connection because he's bad at creative, and there just hasn't been, I don't know, any like signs of life there to make me it be like, oh, this is AEW's time to come in and swoop up all these fans that are disgruntled and blah blah blah. Like I don't see him doing it, unfortunately.
No, no, and in the absence of good storytelling from either top brands, I find myself more drawn to local promotion on YouTube. Sometimes I just want to watch some good wrestling, right? And I want to see something that isn't overproduced. Because I'm watching for the wrestling. I'm not watching for the spectacular light show. Um, and with that being said, moving forward with our podcast, I think you and I are in agreement to kind of lean heavily more on chronicling. So, stuff that has been released, we're going to revisit. We released a Chronicle episode where we covered WrestleMania, but we're going to forward watching older shows and then coming together and discussing the show and maybe contrasting it with what wrestling's doing now, or just giving it context for why it's great in its own time and how it could be timeless as well. So I love that idea with Choreograph Critics Wrestling podcast going that direction because the content currently is not worth my attention, and definitely not at a premium.
For sure. And it's always been like a time consuming thing. Even for me, single without kids, like it's still hours a week. Um, and this way too, with this format of not, I mean, we'll do more than just Chronicle, I think. That'll be the
Oh yeah.
primary focus, but like it'll be fun to talk about like if there is a local show that we go to or whatever. Just kind of get into that too. And with this format too, like we had been, this episode included, this last episode we're kind of doing this way where we're not live streaming, but we're kind of acting like we are because we just kind of hit record, talk, hit stop, and then upload it right away. There isn't really much going into it. There's more on the front end, getting like the logo and the just the layout of the show and stuff like that.
John, this is very unreal of you. You're going too behind the scenes.
But now, uh, now it's going to give us some time to actually, make it look a little more polished, edit it up a bit. Maybe we can incorporate some still shots or like 2 second, just like something that we can get it out there without getting our videos pulled down. So that'll probably be a little bit of an experimental process as well. Just releasing an episode and then maybe 2 days later finding out it got pulled and like
You're right.
trying to figure out, navigate that, like who we gotta like follow up with or whatever. But I think, I don't know. I think we have a good idea in general of what would flag. It's just, a lot of it's automated now. So like there could be something picked up by an algorithm that we don't understand, and then you get like human intervention with it, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't know why it flagged this as being whatever, and they'll just take the flag off.
Right.
But
Yeah. You can
yeah,
combat it.
the point being, we're looking for a more polished product. We're looking to talk about what we want to talk about and like not feel kind of deadlined, I guess, by this is when a show's happening, and you have to be caught up with it by this point or whatever. Yeah, it's just gonna feel a little more free flowing and yeah, just not so I, having deadlines and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it. I think the deadline factor is somewhat key. I mean, for me, it's a key factor because it's like, oh, you miss a Monday Night Raw. Okay, that's one thing. You miss Monday Night SmackDown and Raw, and you have a PLE that weekend. Okay, well, the weekend comes around because you're working, right? And you got stuff to do. Yeah, full disclosure, we do not make our income off this show. Uh, but you get to the weekend, right? And you're like, oh, okay, the PLE's on Saturday, sometimes in like the afternoon. And you're like, shit, okay, I got to watch Monday Night Raw. I got to watch Friday Night SmackDown, then get the PLE under my belt, and then discuss everything that happened. And you're like, whew, 24 hours and you're not fine tuned and ready. It's tough to talk about in a way that flows. So I think having us, like you just said, have less of a deadline and do what we feel kind of works. That's going to be more fun for the audience. A lot of good feedback on our episode where we talked with uh, you know, an older wrestling enthusiast, and he gave us perspective into the product, into what it was like during his time. That was one of our, I think, more fun, free flowing episodes. And to have that instead of the deadline will make our chatter much more enjoyable.
For sure. I'm looking forward to like discussing what we're gonna discuss. Like, I mean, there's so many different ways we could go with it. Like, I had brought up like, oh, you know, WrestlePalooza was this month. Like, if we would have done one this month, like to be on that theme would be kind of not possible, or not that it would be impossible, because I guess there's probably some way you can watch an ECW WrestlePalooza somewhere.
Oh
But
yeah.
what I was getting at is like if we just treated WrestlePalooza as a one off, like this month we could have done some other like what other PLEs have existed that there's only like one or two of, or like there used to be one called Great Balls of Fire. Like we could go and watch that.
Exactly. Dude, I think that's going to be fun. Plus, you can watch in your own like pace. I can sit down and watch a match. Like if I say, "Hey, I want to get this PLE or this pay-per-view under my belt," you can watch a match at night and really dissect it, really understand it. And I don't know, it's fun revisiting. Nostalgia's a big thing. Retro, all that stuff as you get older. But ultimately, I feel that the current product is lacking. So it's not all about a deadline. It's also about I just can't sink my teeth into the current product that WWE is producing. And man, does that make me not want to talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's going to be good for everyone. And we welcome guests. If anybody wants to join in, talk about something they like about wrestling or uh, something from the past that they want to discuss, we welcome any type of crossover with other podcasters, anybody listening to our current product and they want to sit down and chat about a particular moment in wrestling history. I know I'm down. I'm sure John is.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, let us know. But when we return, I think we'll be back with a new look, kind of like a season two, and maybe some new theme music, new intro, etc.
Yeah, it should be fun. What was I gonna say? There's a retro. You were talking about retro. There's retro right over my
Yeah.
shoulder here. Um, I guess before we go for the day, did you want to share anything that like you've been doing? I guess not that you've taken the time to find a hobby to fill this void of not watching professional wrestling, but um, has there been anything that you feel like, oh, I've been able to spend more time with this or that, or anything like that
Like out
that you'd
like
want to share?
outside of wrestling?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about me and my life? Nobody ever asked me that. I got a new gourami for my community fish tank. I have a bunch of endlers in there, and well, I really like labyrinth fish. They can surface and breathe oxygen from the air, so they have like these adapted glands. They come to the surface and then they suck in air and then they go back down, and they have weird ventral like fins. But I do this because that's how they look, and they feel. They're like these little tentacles that feel. And so I added that to my community tank. That's been fun. I haven't bought a fish in over 2 years, so
Oh,
it's always a big uh, change of pace to add a new like pet to a aquarium or whatever. So that's been cool. I know you've been getting into retro consoles and machines, right?
yeah. That's been my big thing lately. I might stop by a thrift store after this. We'll see. But there's it's been kind of fun just like looking for stuff. I I'm kind of doing this thing where I have like, as you can see over me, a CRT old school 4x3 TV. And I'm trying to do things to make it optimal without like, paying optimal prices. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
like newer bits of like, I have like a mini powered amplifier for the speakers and stuff, for example, and just like trying to find good shielded cables that aren't,
Yeah.
super expensive or whatever. And then like also, I'm not trying to pay $60 for a game that came out 20 years ago. So
Well, you got
it's
a PS3 recently.
yes, I did, and that I'm very
Backwards, yeah.
happy with
Backwards
having.
compatible.
Yeah, it has PS2 and PS1 backwards compatibility. Made sure it worked. It's been great. So yeah, that's been a lot of my time, and then something I can share for the wrestling fans that listen to our wrestling podcast. Uh, that's what we're doing.
Not for the foodies.
Yeah,
for you for you foodies out there
yeah. So
listening to the wrestling podcast.
this one's for the furries. No,
This one's for the furries.
um, So something else I've been doing too, just with old content, like YouTube has a WWE Vault channel. They have a WCW channel. TNA lately has been doing live streams where they'll just throw an entire year's worth of their pay per views in a loop,
So funny.
essentially. Um, and YouTube, obviously there's ads unless you pay, but there are web browsers out there. The one that I use is called Brave. It's built off of Chromium, so it's very similar to Edge and Google Chrome, but it has all this built-in ad blocking stuff. So I'll go on like a Vault channel and just throw it on, and it'll just keep going. I don't have to worry about like clicking skip this ad or just even acknowledging that they exist. So if you are looking for something free and you want to stick it to the TKO man or whatever, you can watch their content, some of their content, without the ad revenue for them. And they curate it very well. I mean, it's not necessarily chronological, but it all kind of flows together nice. The WCW one I find the most entertaining just because they go from, I don't know, like let's say 1982 or so, Atlanta NWA stuff, all the way through when WCW died in like 2001. So that gives you the most, well, not the most range, but there's like the WWE one is almost too much range, if that makes sense, because they
Yeah.
could consider something historical like 3 years ago or whatever.
Right.
But anyways, I just figured I'd share like that's something people can do is watch wrestling on a loop for free, and it's probably more enjoyable than what you're watching today.
And you know what? To piggyback on retro, if you want a time capsule, get an old wrestling video game. They're fun. You get to see, you get reminded, you're like, what? The Basham brothers?
Yeah,
Who the hell? And you just get these little nuggets of nostalgia from the intro music to just the little triggers of their finishing moves. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember. I don't know about you, but I love Day of Reckoning and that arcade style wrestling video game. The new stuff, it's good. I feel like the technical 2K model came out of SmackDown versus Raw on the PlayStation. They started getting into that. Obviously, they borrowed from other fighters, but my favorite still stands would be Day of Reckoning, that arcade style wrestling. It's so much fun. It's goofy. It's very fluid.
Yeah, yeah. Dave Reckoning's awesome. That I actually took the time to beat it recently.
Oh my
Um,
god.
it's not very long, but all it is basically if you pick your superstar to go to SmackDown, I think that that's a different story because
Oh,
I
so
picked
there's
Raw.
two.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I picked Raw, and basically it's like you're running a parallel story with Batista almost because like you're with Evolution and doing this stuff, and then Evolution turns their back on you, and then you're fighting Evolution, and it's all about Evolution. That's all that Dave Reckoning Raw storyline is. Um,
Must have been that time era. I must have beat it as a kid because I have some recollection of what you're talking about. And I was into creating characters too. And couldn't you bring your created character through the story, or did
yeah,
you?
yes,
Okay. And then did I see Day of Reckoning, SmackDown versus Raw 2008 had a really good GM mode or something like that where you could simulate a whole calendar year of wrestling and like do the GM stuff. But I
yeah,
feel like Day of Reckoning didn't have that.
no,
I feel like it was more straightforward. And that's another thing I like. Day of Reckoning is kind of akin to the NHL hits and blitz era. It was like the hits and blitz of wrestling.
yeah, that's a good point. And
And
because
slugfest.
I remember like SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, and some of those for PS2, and
Oh yeah.
they weren't as arcadey, and they had the problem of like once like an animation's kind of started, like you can't interrupt it. Whereas
That's right.
Dave Reckoning, like somebody could be like Goldberg could have the guy up in the suplex position for the jackhammer, and somebody else could come and like knock him down and interrupt the finisher. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that part I always really liked. The one thing, not to make this all about wrestling video games, but the one thing about Dave Reckoning that was lacking compared to like the SmackDown ones, and then I I think Xbox had Raw as like their own title.
Yeah.
That one
I
always
think
kind
you're
of gets
right.
lost. But the one downside with Dave Reckoning was they didn't have any voice acting at all. Um,
That's right.
so like there's no commentary. It was just 8 songs, whatever their tracks were in a loop. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
a lot of my childhood got formed around that because there's like 2 Breaking Benjamin songs in there, and
Yeah, it's just that time. I mean, it was a solid wrestling game, and I felt like graphically it holds up too because they used that nice putty rounded model type polygon. And I don't know. I just am very fond of that title and played a lot of wrestling games, and still I go back to that because you're right, you can interrupt animation. It's all like there. You don't have to like I remember people would spam a certain move in the other wrestling games, and once they started the move, you just had to sit there
yeah,
and you're like, okay, gotta wait for the move. Um, and so yeah, the new games are great because they blend everything from the old games. But Day of Reckoning, that's a solid gem. A lot of people do say SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. That era was some of the best. But yeah, retro and nostalgia coming back, especially you know I always joke, but do you think WWE and their fans will ever kind of go back to we miss Vince? Do you think that's coming? Obviously, he's not a great human being and all that, but do you think from like a wrestling enthusiast perspective, we are going to hit that point with TKO where people go like, "Where are you, Vince?"
yeah, I do, and not to make him in the same category as like Santa Claus or the
Or
Easter Bunny.
Jesus?
Yeah, not to put him there, but like if for some reason everyone turned on Santa Claus, right? Like eventually we'd be like, yeah, I kind of miss Santa Claus. So that's how I feel about it.
That's right. You just leave the cookies and the milk, and nothing ever happens. And you just really want them to come down the chimney and bestow those wrestling gifts.
Um, uh,
But
real
it's
quick, I
really a
guess,
shame. Yeah.
over my shoulder, since we were talking about wrestling games, It's
Yeah.
currently on a loop of WCW versus NWO Revenge for N64. Um,
Oh,
there was a battle royal game mode, up to 40 wrestlers. So that's what I've going, but the limitations of the hardware, they only let 4 in at a time. So as soon as somebody gets eliminated, another guy's booking it down the entrance ramp. Um,
yeah.
sorry,
Back then. No, 4 plug and plays. That's what made it chaotic and fun.
for sure. Um, let's see. I I think that pretty much covers what we wanted to get out there, I guess. There's gonna be, I I don't know. We're loosely gonna try to like put out a podcast a month. I don't know if it's gonna be very loose, so don't hold us to that. Like we just got done talking about deadlines. But
No more hate mail. I know we get hate mail. I don't know about you, but I get threatened when an episode doesn't air weekly.
oh geez,
Um, so I'm trying to, yeah, I thought about even blurring my face on season 2 just to protect myself. But no, just don't hold us to the fire, folks. But I will say I enjoy the free flowing nature of conversation when it's not forced. And I think even most people could sense when we're just running through a car. Some of it were like, you and I were on the same page, would be like, yeah, nothing to say about that. Meh,
yeah,
next.
that's a C
And so
minus. Move on. Yeah,
yeah, whatever. And it just felt like I don't want to say drudgery, but maybe uh it would become that, especially if the content is not enticing. So,
yeah. So this should be a good venture for us. Obviously we would like to do it as much as possible, but life and just like we became overwhelmed with all the obligation to being caught up and everything like we were talking about. So yeah, this will be good. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, if we're talking negatively about something we're going back to, hopefully it's still like I don't know, with like a what's the word, like rose colored glasses, I guess, or something like.
oh yeah. Yeah, that type of lens.
Yeah. Um, or just it'd be funnier, I guess, versus now where something's bad. We're just like frustrated. Um,
That's right. Right. Some of the junk gimmicks become funny and comedic and, sometimes culturally insensitive. Like, can you believe Eugene used to be a character with Vince
yeah,
McMahon?
yeah. That's
Like, that type of stuff.
yeah, or the Iron Sheik, um,
Iron Sheik, yeah. Oh, yeah. Middle Eastern.
or
Yeah.
Colonel
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Mustafa or Mustafa, whatever. I think they called him that briefly, but uh, anyways, yeah. So we figured we'd have a state of the pod address today to let our fans know we still exist, we still want this, we're still striving to put out stuff. It's just we're gonna take this pivot with it, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the ride. Is there anything you wanted to add here before we take off?
Um, no, I will say, so yes, I will say if anybody has suggestions, they want to share a particular moment in wrestling history, please leave your suggestion down below in the comments.
Suggestions, and yeah, even like full shows, like anything, just hey, you guys should check this out, whatever. We'll look for that in the comments. I think I'll have to talk to you about this off air, but I think we have comments turned off for non-subscribers. We might have to do something for that. Um, but
Yeah, I didn't know that.
but anyways, yeah, thanks for joining everybody. And when we come back, we will have a facelift and we will be in a different mood, and it'll be great. So Everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend here and happy fall.